Well, we're in this series entitled Vacay Mode, and the reason we're in this series is because we've realized that in our culture, we live under a lot of stress. And so we've been trying to deconstruct that, unpack it, and solve it, figure out how we can do a better job. And so in week number 1, we learned that sometimes you just need to pause. And then week number 2, we learned that sometimes you need to purge some stuff out. Last week, we learned a mechanism that helps us find rest called prayer. And next Sunday, I don't know what kind of church you grew up in, or if you didn't grow up in church, this might kind of surprise you a little bit, but we're going to learn next week that God commands us to party. Absolutely, no, it's actually there. And next week, I know it's a long weekend, and so we're going to go into party mode here at Central. We're going to have some giveaways. If you haven't been able to get away yet, we'll make sure you get away. We're going to have stuff in the lobby. It's going to be a lot of fun. So the next few weeks are going to be really exciting. And then if you've not driven by York Road yet, and seen our building, it is up, the steel structure. You can kind of see the size and scope of it. And so that's a really exciting. This next year, my friends, is going to be amazing. And so, And so we're just so glad that you're a part of it. So today I want to talk about planning rest. Now again, for a lot of you, that doesn't sound like those two words should go together. But actually, we're going to learn they do. And if you don't plan rest, it isn't going to happen. So when I was a teenager, I worked in the food industry. That means I was a busboy at a restaurant. But I worked in a restaurant called Sea Galley. Does anyone remember Sea Galley? No. Okay. It was like a Red Lobster kind of a restaurant. And it was in the era of the salad bar. Did you remember the salad bar era? Restaurants came up with this novel idea that it was they'd set a salad bar out and you could before your meal as an added on, you could get a salad bar. The challenge was it was before all you could eat. So do you remember you had one plate? That was the rule, right? The one plate rule. So you could put as much as you could on there, and people were incredibly creative, but they were also incredibly sloppy and messy. And so they actually had to hire full-time staff, that was me, to maintain the salad bar. Because people would inevitably, every time, put too much food on their plate. And so it would spill all over the salad bar. It would spill all over the floor. People were trying to pile things up, build sticks with their carrot sticks and then cucumber the cylinder up and then fill it with salad. It was pretty impressive. But they'd have too much on their plate. The analogy, we say this as an idiom now in our culture, is, I've got too much on my plate, because here's what I've learned. We do the same thing. We live in a culture where, for some reason, our value seems to be attached to what we do, what we have on our plate. And so we actually take pride when we're super busy. Oh, yeah, I'm just so busy. And we actually think that's a good thing. But the problem is it's causing all kinds of stress and anxiety. And we're getting ourselves into trouble because we have too much on our plate. So I don't know what you came in with. I don't know what's on your plate, but we're going to kind of do a little exercise today that will hopefully help alleviate some of the stress that you find in your life. So in the seat in front of you, there are these plates. You're welcome to pick one of those up. And as I'm talking today, I want you to just start writing all the things you have on your plate. If you're watching online, just grab a piece of paper. You can do the same thing. But my wife, she designed one for me. And so this is my plate. And she even got it's so cute. She put herself right there. It's way too small because she takes a lot bigger slice than that. But anyway, here's all the things on our plate. And here's the reality. It's really frustrating, isn't it, when you have to say no to certain opportunities that you'd love to take simply because you have too much on your plate. It's really stressful when we feel like our life is falling apart because there's not enough room for all the things that we're trying to cram in. And the interesting thing about this is that God knew you and I would be prone to do this. God knew that because we're people pleasers, we'd say yes to too many things. God knew that we would find our affirmation in all the things that we were connected to, and so we'd try to load up. God knew that we'd be stressed and anxious because, we'd have one curveball in our life journey and we'd go, I don't know where that's going to fit. God knew that many of you would come into this place weary and heavy burdened. And so he came up with a solution. And the solution is something called Shabbat, or we say in English, Sabbath. If you have your Bibles, I want you to turn with me to Genesis chapter 2, and we're going to start reading in verse 1. You see, the problem is when our plate is so full, we don't have actually room for the things that really matter. And so in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array." So the Bible introduces us to this idea that the world we live in isn't random, that there's a God who created everything. Last night I was sitting outside, and I don't know if you get the opportunity to do this, please take it before summer's over. But it was just a beautiful warm night. The stars were shining. We were sitting outside. It was beautiful. And I was just reminded of the incredible grandeur, the majesty, the beauty of this world that we live in. And the Bible says that God made all of these things. And then on the seventh day, so he did those on 6 days, and then on the seventh day, when he had finished the work he'd been doing, he rested from all of his work. Now, I don't know if you've ever stopped to think about this, but was it because he was exhausted? Was it because he was like us, and like by Friday, he's like, I can't do another thing. I'm just going to rest. No, it wasn't the cessation of activity. You see, that's the problem. We've done one of two things that don't actually bring rest. We think they do, but they don't. One, we either put the plate aside and go on vacation and fill our life with all kinds of distractions, at the spa, at the golf course, only to have to come back and pick this up, right? We do it that way. We try to ignore the problem, or we just keep heaping stuff on, or we think it's just doing nothing, vegging out, laying around. But none of those things actually solve the problem. You see, God wasn't ceasing his activity. He was doing something different, and we're going to learn what that was today, because it's a gift for you too. So then it says, then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. That word, has all kinds of baggage around it, but in this context, it means simply different. He did something different that brought about rest, because on he rested from all the work of creating he had done. So this word used here literally is the image of an artist who paints a beautiful picture, and at the completion of this picture, steps back and takes a moment to enjoy it. Pick up your plate. If you were to take a moment and you were to step back, would you enjoy it? If not, you're not resting. That's the image here. Now, here's what we did, though. We came along. We said, God, thanks for everything. Really appreciate the gift of life. Well, that's pretty good. My heart's beating. I'm surrounded by people. Thank you very much. But I just need to add more. We live with this lie that it's not enough. So if I just had more stuff, if I just was known by more people, if I could just please that person. And anytime we substitute rest with activity, especially when it's directed at self, we end up with a mess. The Bible calls it toil and sweat. What was supposed to be a gift, enjoying the work that you were given, became toil and sweat. So God anticipated this, and so he created something called Shabbat, or the Sabbath. There are the 10 Commandments. So let's fast forward after creation to a guy by the name of Moses. And he's given the 10 Commandments. Maybe you've seen the movie or you've read the book, even better. And these 10 Commandments, the fourth one is keep the Sabbath day holy. Now here's how funny we are as human beings. So what we did was we said, okay, well, then we got to do some more stuff because God demands all these things from me. So I don't know what it was like for you if you did grow up in church, but I can tell you something. Our Sabbath, for those of us who follow Jesus, it's on Sunday. The reason simply is because that's when he rose from the dead. If you're Jewish, it's on Saturday, or specifically sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. But whatever your day is, here's what we did. We said, okay, God commands the Sabbath, therefore the Sabbath must be for God. So we're going to jam our day full of stuff that we think will make God happy. So for me growing up, I love where I grew up. I love my mom and dad. I love the church. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But here's what my day was. As a kid, I'm going to be transparent. It was one of the worst days of my week. Because here's what you did. I grew up in Thailand where it is extremely hot. So you wake up earlier than you normally do, and you put on a suit. That was the first sign that this is not gonna be a good day. Because if you're a kid, a suit is bad enough. In that humidity, it was not great at all. And then you were taken to church, and church was at least 3 hours long. Like if it wasn't at least 3 hours, it wasn't a good service. So you sat through church for 3 hours. Then you got home, and you were forced to take a nap. You were forced to rest. I know this was beneficial for my parents, but as a kid, it was torture. Like now I've had to sit still. If you know me, imagine me trying to sit still for 3 hours. Good luck. And then I had to lay down. It was like I was about to lose my mind. Then I'd finally fall asleep because it was the only day of the week I was allowed to sleep in an air-conditioned room. It was amazing. So I'd wake up only to put on a suit again and go back to church. Right? And you're like, oh, but that's what we did. Because we thought that was holy. We thought, well, God wants us to make sure one day a week we're doing all these things for him. Can I help you with this? God actually doesn't need you to do anything for him. Last I checked, he is completely sufficient. He is more than enough. And when he asks us to do something, it isn't because he has a need or has a lack. It's because we do. The truth is, Shabbat or Sabbath was created for us. Jesus reinforces this hundreds of years later. He's like, listen, it's not about doing more. It's not like taking your plate that's already overloaded and adding a whole bunch of religious stuff. Well, maybe if I just prayed a little bit more, heap some of that on there. And maybe if I, sang some more songs or read the Bible more, whatever. No, you're missing the whole point of Sabbath. What we learn if you read the entire story or context of the Bible is that true Shabbat or Sabbath is when you stop to evaluate your life. To evaluate in the context of who God is and who he made you to be, whether you're on track. And then to correct so you can re-engage in your life. It's not like two separate compartments, your spiritual life and your other life. They're so intertwined that God creates this principle of rest. So you can stop, evaluate, correct, and re-engage the life you were designed for. Because I don't know what you think about yourself, but you were created to experience a life full of joy. That's what you were created for, of hope and peace. But we can't because our plate is too full of stuff. This was so important to God that actually in Leviticus, which is the graveyard for every Bible reading plan, I don't know if you've ever tried to read the Bible in a year. And right, you read Genesis and it's like, oh yeah, great creation, and you got the flood, and you got Joseph and Abraham, and then you get into Exodus, and it's like, oh yeah, Moses set my people free, and Joshua fighting, and then you get to Leviticus. It's like you can't do this and you can't do that, and don't cook a young goat in its mother's milk, and you're like, what? And you die, and that's it. You don't make it any further. No, let's all be honest, okay? It's okay if you didn't make it past Leviticus. Okay, but Leviticus 25, this idea is so important that God says, not only do I want you to experience rest, I actually want the land to experience rest. See, God has this plan. It's an economic, environmental, social plan for rejuvenation, for re-engagement. Here's what we read in Leviticus. We want to read in Luke, but we're in Leviticus 25:4. It says, but in the 7th year, in the land is to have a year of Sabbath rest. So not only are you supposed to take 1 day a week to rest, but the land every 7th year is supposed to rest as well. So don't sow your fields or prune your vineyards. Do not reap what grows of itself or harvest the grapes of your untended vines. The land is to have a year of rest. This impacts everything. You see, Sabbath isn't about an obligation or a rule or a religious observance. It's about a rhythm of life. It's about understanding that there are going to be times when you need to stop and reevaluate. So my grandfather was a farmer, and he did this because if you're a farmer, you know that when you harvest the land, you draw the nutrients from it, and on the 7th year, it needs opportunity to nutrate it. I don't know what the word is. Nutrate it? I don't know. What do you say there? What's the word? Yeah, regenerate. There we go. We'll go with that. Rejuvenate itself. So here, I got thinking about that. Okay, so here's what I was thinking about our life and how this works. So if it's like the rhythm of life, I thought about music. Now, I'm not a great musician, but I had to take piano theory growing up. And in theory, you learn that music isn't just notes. When most people think of music, they think of what they hear, the notes. But really good music, creative music, actually has rests. And those rests are intentional. They are planned. They are designed because they create emotion and they create movement. There's something beautiful about music when it has rests and it's not just notes. So to prove it, I asked David to come and help me a little bit. So we sang a song earlier today, I Am Who You Say I Am. And so this is what that song sounds like without rests. You're such a good piano player. Show off. So you can hear, you hear the melody. That was all the notes. But without rests, it sounds chunky, chaotic, without feeling. And the sad reality is that for many of you, this is your life. You're so busy running from one thing to the next thing. You got this activity, that activity, these demands. One curveball throws you off track. One change in plans messes you completely up. No wonder you're stressed. This is how your life sounds. It was not meant to sound that way. So God builds in a rhythm of rests so that your life actually sounds like this. Thank you, David. So I have this crazy idea. What if God made you, knows you, loves you enough to say that there's a better way? And this way is Sabbath or Shabbat. It means to rest. And the great thing about it is that it's not just for one limited time, it's for all kinds of times and seasons. For those of you who are Bible trivia buffs, you're going to like this next little piece because I came across this week and I was like, blew my mind. So here's the deal. So every 7 years they were supposed to have the land in rest. The interesting thing is if you read the story, not one time is it ever mentioned that they actually do it. So for 490 years they live in the promised land. If you divide that by 7, you get the number 70. 70 years they were supposed to be in rest, but they chose not to. Then Babylon comes in, takes them captive. How long are they in captivity for? 70 years. You want an explanation? Well, don't take my word for it. I'll tell you what the Bible, how it explains it. It says in 2 Chronicles 36:20 that God carried into exile to Babylon the remnant. So Babylon comes in, massacres thousands of people, drags thousands more to be slaves in Babylon. And those who had escaped from the sword, they became servants to the Babylonian king and his successors until the kingdom of Persia came to power. Do you want to know why? Because the land enjoyed its Sabbath rests. All the time of its desolation, it rested until the 70 years were completed in fulfillment of the word of the Lord spoken to Jeremiah. Here was the thought I had. If you don't rest, you become a captive. If you don't rest, rest is forced upon you. This principle is so powerful that if you miss it, it will mess you up. When I was about 24 years old, this might surprise you, but I'm a type A personality, and And when I was 24, I had no filter. When I was 24, I really wanted everyone to like me. And anytime someone said, Bill, could you do this? My answer was, yes, I'll do it. I'll do this. I'll do that. I was over 24 years old, and one day I was in the middle of a youth service experience, and I was speaking, and I knew something wasn't right. And so I excused myself. I walked out into the hall, and I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in a hospital, and for 3 days, they pumped me full of morphine, ran all kinds of tests to figure out what was wrong with me. And they discovered that nothing was wrong with me because they couldn't diagnose the real problem. The problem wasn't physical, it wasn't mental. The problem was my soul. The problem was me, was in jeopardy. And so my soul said, enough, enough. Anxiety is whenever we believe that God, you've given me too much, or I can't do this, or we've done it to ourselves. And we find ourselves in captivity to anxiety. We find ourselves in captivity to the demands of other people. Can I just help you with this? Here's the deal, okay? Even if you were the best person on the planet, there would be still people who don't like you. So stop trying to get people to like you. I'm not saying don't be a nice person. I'm just saying don't make that your goal. Can I help you with another thing? Some of you are so worried about disappointing people. Can I help you with that? I've learned no matter how much you do, for some people it's never enough. It's called my Monday mornings. It's like, right? So don't live your life to figure out how much you can heap on your plate and how much you can navigate and maneuver. No, experience God's rest. And that doesn't mean you stop doing things. It just means that you allow God to look at your life and to help you navigate the things that are there, the things that shouldn't be there. For me, here's how it looks like. I start every Monday morning. I get up really early. People think I'm really disciplined. I'm not. It doesn't come naturally to me. They say, well, how do you do it? Here's my secret. Go to bed early. It works. I promise you, if you go to bed early, you can get up earlier. It's just really scientific breakthrough. Anyway, just try it sometime. And so I go to bed early so I can get up early. And I start every week on a Monday just looking at my calendar, looking at all the things, all the demands, all the expectations that I put on myself, others have put on me. And God and I just spend time going, God, what on this needs to get out of here? And I know if I say no to that, I'm going to disappoint somebody. Just today I got asked to do something, and I know they're disappointed because I said no. I know I'm going to disappoint people, but that's okay, God, because I just want to do the real things, the right things. You see, on my plate, there's my wife, and when she made this, I said, you made that way too small. That needs to be way bigger because I love you way much more than that little thing there, but it helps me go, what do I need to expand? God, what do I need to say no to so I can say yes to the right things? Do you know that Warren Buffett said the difference between successful people and really successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything so they can say yes to the right things. See, God's rest isn't just stopping doing something. It's not just sleeping in on a Saturday morning. It's not just taking a week off. You have 365 days in the year. To drop this for a moment and then to have to come pick it up is almost more debilitating. I don't know if you're like me. I get almost more anxious when I have 2 days left of my vacation. Why? Because I know that while I was away and dropped my plate, people were putting stuff on there. And I got to come back and pick it up. So I've changed my mindset about rest. Rest is something that I try to do every day, where I actually start my day by just going, God, show me what needs to come off of this and show me what I need to put on here so that hurt that I've been carrying, help me to forgive so I can take that off my plate. That fear that I'm going to be a terrible dad because I'm not good enough. God, could you help me take that off because they're your kids? And instead I'll put time with them. How about that? How about if I take out the stressing about it and I replace it with time with them? And help me to be the person you've created to be, not what everyone else wants me to be or expects me to be. And so I take my list and I do this every day. I go through and I look at my calendar. I look at my schedule for that day, half-hour slots. My day is literally half-hour slots, all planned, all prepared. And I go through and I go, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to do that, or I'm going to do this. And sometimes you got to do it because you said yes, and you got to keep your word. But the next time I get the opportunity, I'm going to say no to that. I'm still working on it. Ashley can tell you I'm still working on it, but I'm trying. And then about every 3 months, I get away for a couple of days, and I do the same thing. I just get a room, and I put paper all over the room, those sticky notes, those big sheets, and I start writing what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, and it helps me plan rest. It's my time with God to go, God, I want my life to reflect who you created me to be. I don't want just empty carbs. I want something of substance. I want to be healthy. Jesus said it this way, what good is it if you gain the whole world? What good is it if you have all this stuff, but you've lost your soul? And you say, mate, okay, Bill, I'd love that, but I don't know how. This is where it comes full circle. This is the best part. This is why I'm a follower of Jesus. Because Jesus steps onto the scene and he says something profound. For thousands of years, God is building this principle of rest. That there's a space that you can create in your life where I will speak to you and I will show you. I will give you the wisdom to know what to say no to. And the courage to say yes to the right things. Because no longer will you be defined by how other people see you or what they say about you or what they think about you. No longer will you be defined by the expectations people put on you because they're all unrealistic. No longer will you stress about what you're going to do. You're 17 years old. You don't have to have it all figured out. Instead, you could just be who I created you to be, and that's a great place. When you get there, even in the middle of chaos, you can actually have rest. It's the weirdest thing. But it's true. So Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. If you're here today and you feel like your plate is too full, it probably is. Or you're frustrated because as you look at it, you go, why is that such a big part of my life? And this is such a small part of my life. It probably is. And in this principle, if you do this, in this practice, you can say, God, would you show me? Would you show me? Even if it's uncomfortable for me, I'm going to trust you in it. Even if I don't want to do it, I'll do it because I know it's good. It's like when you're a kid and you eat your vegetables, right? You don't like it, but you know it's good for you. God, I'll do whatever it takes to be who you created me to be because I'm tired of carrying this weight. It doesn't mean you give it to him and run away. A lot of people think that's what it is. You just give it. No, he steps in and says, no, okay, let's navigate this and let's figure this out together. So the good news for you today is that if you're here and you're weighed down, there is a solution, and it's called Shabbat or Sabbath. And it's not a certain day of the week, and it's not a certain period of time, and there's not certain activities that you do in it. Those can all be helpful. I love coming to church because we sing songs like we did today, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. I needed to be reminded. I am who you say I am, not what he said I am or what she thinks I should be. I'm who you say I am. I need that. I need to be encouraged through the reading of this incredible book that God has given us of what he says about me and what is right and what is true. I need that in my life. But it doesn't just happen on a Sunday. I get to experience that every day of the week if I'm willing to humble myself and say, God, my life is yours. You show me what to take off and what to put on. And so if you're here today, and this is kind of a new concept to you, maybe you're kind of new to this whole faith thing, and you're not sure, could I just encourage you to try something this week? Just try it. Why not this week say, God, I'm going to give you my life. And just create enough space to hear or listen. I've never heard it in an audible voice, but there's something inside of me that begins to speak and is clear as day, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And then just do that. If you're here and you're a follower of Christ, and you find yourself weighed down, burdened, find yourself in a place you don't want to be, captive, could I just encourage you this week to surrender and say, God, I want freedom. I want your freedom. Show me what that looks like. And if you're here and you don't know how to navigate that, we'd love to do that with you. That's why we have area pastors. Every one of you in this room, whether you knew it or not, there's a pastor who is designated to take care of you. If you're watching online, your online pastor, don't walk out of this place without dealing with the burden you carried in. As we close today, there's going to be a prayer team that would love to pray with you. If you're watching online, you can interact with your online pastor. If you came with someone, you can talk to them about it, or you can go to the great big blue wall and ask somebody, how do I do this? This is why groups are so important, because this is how we figure this out. But today I want to just bless you. I want to pray for you, and then I want to bless you. And so God, I pray that we would experience your rest in this place. We live in a society that has become so unrealistic with expectations and demands. We live in a world that tells us that our value is attached to what we do or what we own or who we know. We live in a culture of comparison. We see the pictures on Instagram and we think, man, I've got to be more like that. And we forget that you created us to be us. And in a world of unrealistic expectations and demands, you never put that burden on us. You simply want to walk alongside of us to navigate the things that we can weed out and the things that we can weave into our life, so we can experience the rhythm of life the way it was designed, with notes and rests. And so if you're here today and you've not put Jesus at the center of your life, that's the first thing to do. And if you have, then it's to allow him to begin to navigate those areas. Because as strong as you are, you're not strong enough. He is. And as smart as you are, you're not wise enough, but he is. He's everything you've always needed. Whether you knew it, accepted it or not, it's true. So may you receive his rest today. Amen. And today I bless you. I bless you with the truth that no matter what you walked into this place with, no matter how heavy your plate, no matter how overwhelming the burden, that there is a God who says and promises, come to me and I will give you rest. May you experience his peace this week as you exercise this discipline of surrendering your life to him and asking him to navigate with you the things that need to be off and the things that need to be on. May you find his peace and may you walk in it. May you no longer live to the expectations of those around you or even of yourself, but rather to the one who made you and has always loved you. And may you experience his profound peace. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.